Welcome to Art Talk with April. I'm April Harris of Inked April and the host of this podcast. This is season 4. We have some amazing artists on. I can't wait to share them with you. So let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome to Art Talk with April. Today we have Kimberly Hart, a multidisciplinary artist. And she's also the president of the Alabama Women's Caucus of Art. And we also have a fellow guest who is our little dog. What's his name?
This is Abby. I got 2 of them. They're just
okay.
each other. Sorry. Abby and Obi want to talk about art.
Yeah, they're excited. So we'll just have them on. So Kimberly, how did you get started in art and being interested in creating?
I can't remember a time when I wasn't making something, whether it was in the backyard, making these little adobe houses or, painting or drawing. I didn't associate it with a career. I loved the idea that you could take something that was string and twigs and then create something, a bouquet of flowers. That was like magic, and I always did that. And it wasn't until high school I had a really good art teacher, and she kind of just let me go. I mean, it wasn't because, state of Alabama, they don't give a lot of money towards art, especially in public schools.
Sure.
But she was very encouraging, and she took us to Atlanta and to Nashville to see museums.
That's awesome that she took you guys to do that stuff. That's wonderful.
Right. Because that had been the first time I think we went to the High Museum. I remember I was in like 9th grade.
Oh.
And it was so world altering. I had never been to a museum like that before and discovered I love museums. I just love them. I love the smell. I love to walk in. It's like going to a cathedral. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
So she encouraged. She was always very encouraging. Now my parents thought that was the craziest thing they had ever heard of, that you would do art for a living. And I got partial scholarships to several nice colleges, but they were just like, no, you're not going to do that.
Oh,
and we won't help you if you choose that. Yeah. And it's a hobby that you do in your spare time. But this is not what you do for a living.
Yeah.
And so I was very practical, and I chose a practical line of work and did it for 10 years and was really unhappy. I'm not a desk person, and I know that.
Yeah.
Why I did this? You're offered a job and you're a child and your parents are going, you will never get another opportunity like this. You take it. But I did scheme ways. I decided I was going back to school and I was going to get a degree in art, and I did. And I was only going to do it for like a year because that's about what the credits would have been to take and get an art degree. But I had so much fun. I was like, ooh, I think I'll stay and take, printmaking. Because the way the schedule would work, because you probably remember this when you were in school, they'd offer this one class for your senior year once a year. And if you didn't get in, you didn't graduate. And that's what happened to me. And so I just went, I'm just going to take a lot of printmaking classes because I don't know anything about printmaking. Fell in love with printmaking.
Oh,
it was
awesome.
Just like, oh my God,
meant to be.
Where's this been all my life? Because it was, and if you've interviewed other printmakers, it's like the most frustrating but fulfilling thing at the same time. Because you go, what's the most difficult way to make an image? Printmaking. I think I'll try that.
Oh, it's awesome.
You're like, ooh, I like it. It's just so frustrating. I'm compelled. It's almost like an obsession.
Yeah.
Or an itch. You just can't strike. I have to make art. I have to make something.
So you got into printmaking, but then you're also doing a little bit of like sewing and things like that in your work. Like with your recent show, or your show that's going on right now, how did you combine those things? Like make the choices to do those things?
I think to be honest, when I look back, it's a natural progression. I mean, cyanotypes are a kind of a combination between printmaking and alternative photography.
Yeah.
And when I was 10, I wanted to be a National Geographic photographer. That was that or a vet. And since my math was not good, National Geographic photographer. But when you're a child,
awesome anyway.
You're like, anything would have been great.
Yeah.
Dogs, great. But no, I've always loved photography and I've always loved printmaking. And for 14 years, I was a teacher and I taught, alternative photography because you have no money. So you have to think of ways to teach photography to children that are just mind blowing. And there's something about doing a camera obscure or playing around with that's so much fun. And then teaching about cyanotypes, which is just, the chemical on paper and then like a stencil, you put a plan on it and you get it. And I had fun doing it with the kids. And then how that came together was I would just say magic and then make it easy. But what happened about 11 years ago, I was diagnosed with a rare kidney disease. Oh. And it will change your world. Because it was really hard. I didn't realize how physical printmaking was or painting until I got sick. I remember I didn't know what I had, and I was printing something for, I don't know if anyone knows Rachel Lackey of Green Pre Press, and we were working on her calendar series together. And I was just like, I got to sit down. I am so tired. I never realized that screen printing was so physical. Wow. And I'm just, I'm like, I'm anemic. It's you don't know what's going on. You just think, well, this is just weird. Yeah. And then for a year, they didn't know what I had. So they just threw all sorts of medications at you and you don't know what planet you're on. Yeah. At least I didn't. I could not think clearly. And to me, it was almost heartbreaking because, well, it was heartbreaking. No ideas were coming to me. Some of the medications would mess up and I couldn't hold a pencil. I couldn't hold a brush very long. I couldn't do anything very long at all. One, I didn't know where I'd start on something and then not know where I was at or just physically. Yeah. So I started kind of things. Well, I got better. They found a medication that works. And I got to a place where I could do more. And that was exciting, very exciting. And then it was like, I was like, but what can you do? I didn't know what I could do. And I said, well, I can sit real well and I can sew. And I taught, and again, it was from teaching kids. I was thinking, well, what could I do? Just rambling around because I'm not going to be doing a lot of printmaking. And I'm probably not going to be doing a lot of big paintings anymore. Yeah. But what is contained and intimate and what I can do. And I just started playing around with that. And I've been doing that for a couple of years, just playing around, nothing solidified. I mean, I've played a little bit with encaustics and I've kind of started incorporating them, just trying to play. Play is the biggest thing in my work. If people play, you will have work. And then a big thing, which is kind of related to unrelated. I don't know if you've heard about the 100-Day Project. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you have the time and the inclination, do it. Because there's just something about it that makes you think about something that much for 100 days.
I was just going to say, can you tell us about the 100-Day Project in case anyone listening hasn't heard of that?
If they haven't heard of it, go check it out. Just Google it and you will find a lot of stuff. I can't remember. I want to say it's out of RISD, Rhode Island School of Design, okay. But it could be out of Chicago. So don't trust me on that one. But one of those universities came up with this idea. They would make their students do something for 100 days. Mm-hmm. They would come up with a project and you set yourself up for success. Don't make it so impossible that by day 10, you're like, I hate this. Yeah. Because you're going to hate it. There's just no way around this, but you want to set yourself up for success. So I kind of thought about it and I had been thinking off and on, and then COVID happened. And then I'm like, I got nothing to do. I got 100 days. You do. 100 days free. And I'm going to try this. And I picked a medium that, while I can teach it to children. It's not one I felt confident in. It was watercolor. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make it super random. I came up with a rubric of color families and then the numbers, and I rolled dice. I tried to make it just
that's so fun.
insane. Because there would be days that I'd roll colors and I'd be like, there is no way that is gonna work.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, but you got to do it. Because the rule was because I had a lot of self-imposed rules. And I know as artists, we kind of already do that. So that might put you in a different place. But I think being put in a different place and being uncomfortable is a good part of making art. And this made you really uncomfortable because you had no idea. Or you did it and you'd be like, and one of their things is they like for you to post daily. Whatever social media you use, post it. So there's that. Oh my God, that looks so bad. I'd have to show everybody because we would look at it and you'd be like, oh my God, those colors are nasty together. And then by the end of the day, you'd be like, well, it's not terrible, but I'm going to post it. And surprisingly, this is what surprised me. The ones that I thought were absolute failures were the ones that people went crazy over. But I think the idea of just embracing not being married to an end result was beautiful. And it's really, I will say, like the first couple of days, weeks, you struggle with that. I was doing all these really cute, overly complicated designs and not happy. And then I just went, I don't really care anymore. And that's when I had the best fun. Yeah. I would put the color, because you end up with these color families that you're just like, nobody on the planet would put those together.
That's so
and then you try it and you'd be like, oh,
that.
Not so bad.
Yeah, because it's basically forcing you to do something you just wouldn't normally do. And then you're discovering and connecting different colors together that you probably wouldn't have put together. So then you're like, what else could I do? Like
exactly.
Up, more possibilities.
As an artist, you fall in love with certain color palettes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you get hemmed in and you don't even know it till you start looking at your body of work, say after you start photographing it or looking at it on Instagram and go, wow, I need to really get out of the mood of green and pink here. But but it forces you just to, and I think just the fact that it would make your head hurt and go, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But you had to do these rules. I mean, you didn't have to. These rules
were self-imposed. Yeah, but
it was good. It just made you think in a different way.
Absolutely.
It also, I think, going, well, whatever I get is whatever I get, also helps too. Because I think sometimes we get married to the idea of what this end product is going to be, and I think sometimes either it'll frustrate us or we'll just. I think it stymies creativity.
Absolutely.
At least that's my personal belief.
But. Yeah, I mean, I've experienced that myself, and that's probably one of those things I probably struggle with the most is not letting go, like not trying to control it as much and playing and having fun instead.
Right. I think all of us struggle with control, period. But when it comes to art making, it's really hard, because, I mean, one, you want to go, this is a beautiful thing I have made. And I think once you let go of control, I think the universe supports you. I mean, that may sound goofy to some people, but when you try to control it, there's something about the end product that you'll go, that it's a little too perfect. It's just a little too right. It has it loses its soul, I think.
I think something magical in accidents, like
yes,
random. You're like, whoa, how did that even happen?
Right. I have had some of my best things happen just because it was an accident.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I spend the rest of the month trying to replicate that accident. It's fun. Then that's a whole nother subject. But it's just something about just letting go of control. The 100-Day Project really, it's almost like I now know a way to get to that place where I go, let it go. And let's see what happens. I will say it was good for that. It was good for a lot of things.
Yeah.
I cannot recommend it. If you're in a creative block or you're just tired of your work, try it.
Yeah.
and just see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, everything from like making yourself do it every day, making yourself post every day, trying something different every day. I mean that, and for 100 days is a lot.
Right. And about, I'm not lying, about day 15, you go, am I going to be able to do this? but you're like, no, I've committed to this, and I'm going to do it. That's why you kind of, they if you go to their website, they'll tell you set yourself up for success. Like, for example, there were some textile people, and they would do like 2 stitches a day. That was their goal, besides posting and stuff like that. I mean, and by the end, they'd have a finished product. So that's how they set it up. I chose watercolors that were all about 4x6, and then just played around with watercolors and techniques.
Yeah. So it's sort of like the I guess the more simple it is and the smaller it is, you just get into a practice of doing it.
Right. The practice, that is another thing. Thank you for bringing that up. The actual doing it every day really helps your mindset, your head, because you're like, well, I can do this. Because you go, I can do this for 15 minutes. Yeah. What else could I do for 15 minutes? What else could I do for maybe 30? And that's kind of how I work, just because, at least for the show that I have up now, took about, I actually started on it probably about 17 months. And it was I worked more than this, but I would set a timer for 30 minutes, and I would work just that. And then if I had more time, I'd do another 30 minutes. That works really well for me. I think because I have undiagnosed ADHD. So the tomato system is amazing. I don't know if you've probably heard about that if you have children. But it works. But
yeah, I think it's like building a habit, just an
exactly
is like that. You just, if it's 5 minutes every day,
right. You just don't know what you're going to,
or it doesn't have to be like a final something,
right? But it takes time. Even if you're a printmaker and you took a long time to get to the place where you're actually printing. Sure. So all art to me is process. It's just semantics. I mean, anything else in between.
Yeah, but, absolutely.
Habit rituals. I'm a firm believer in that.
So with like each show, are you thinking, okay, this is the subject, this is the theme that I'm going for, and kind of build your work on that? Or is it all intuitive, or some of both?
I feel like it's bit of both. I started off and I made one piece, and I thought, well, a couple pieces that were very unsuccessful, but the one piece that was successful, that kicked everything off with the sewing and the cyanotypes. Yeah. And it was, during beginning of COVID, and everything was so crazy. And I'd been reading a lot of Buddhist philosophy and just Stoicism and stuff like that. And what I was thinking about is, I wanted to make a positive statement, because I felt there was so much negative and going on in the world. And I was gravitating towards these female images, and I've always incorporated nature in my work. Yeah. I love being outside. I love looking at shadows. I could look at trees, and I spent most of my COVID time looking at trees. But if you ever watch one of those Art 21s, there are always these artists staring out the window. So I didn't really feel too bad about it. Yeah. Just staring out the window. I'm like,
oh, that's a fun observation.
I'm just thinking. Yeah. And I did a lot of that. And I think that plays into my work, especially nature. Bugs, birds, fish, animals, period. And then the feminine. And I went that way with it. That's what inspired me. And it was really funny, because I took my mom to see my show. I don't know if this is a side story, to see my show yesterday. And she was like, it was the funniest observation. She has never seen this body of work.
Yeah.
To be honest, I didn't see it until I hung it up. I mean, I'd seen it in little bits and pieces. And it's kind of a
Sure.
scary thing when you see it all up, but satisfying at the same time. And
Yeah.
she's like, I bet there's a lot of Trump people that wouldn't like this. And I'm like, well, that is the weirdest conversation I've heard. Tell me more.
Yeah.
And when she points it out, I mean, everybody is there's probably one white girl in the entire, and when I say girl, 14. Everybody else is, a grown woman of different ethnicity, so, and I wanted that. And I sought it out. And I know there's some people going around going, there was this crazy woman at the library today, and she wanted to take a picture of my child. And I don't know what she said. Most people were great. Every once in a while, you get that person that'd be like, what do you want? And I'd have to get my business card out and say, and I'll contact you when my show goes up. Wow. So that was pretty positive. That was fun. Just talking to random strangers and looking at them, looks at it, they're going, what? But it was hard getting models. I did get 2 really great models. I wanted randomness in it. I wanted to really embrace random.
That is a fantastic idea. And I think too, like when you're walking up to people and you're like, I want to take your picture, or your child's picture, or whoever, you're also networking in a way, like in a way sort of a side way. And then you can invite them to your show and they can see themselves in the artwork. And it just, is more, I don't know, it's like a community, almost like a community project.
It is.
But you're the one that's facilitating it.
I am. I'm going, hey, let's all.
Yeah.
I mean, but I say most people were pretty open. I mean, there were, and I don't blame, I mean, total stranger goes, I love your hair. What's wrong with you? Apparently I have no filter, which helps a whole lot.
Oh, that's fun. I think it's fun you mentioned what your mother said about your show too. It's like you never really know what people are going to think when they see your work, and sometimes it's really just absolutely not what was in your mind at all, and you're like, whoa, okay, that's an interesting.
I love that. I really work hard because people will say, so what does this mean? And I'm like, well, what do you think? They hate that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I really want to hear, and I'm serious. I want to hear
absolutely.
What you think. It means more to me what you think about my art than what I'm trying to put out there. I mean, I know what I'm doing, and apparently I make art to make myself happy. But I would really like to know why you are drawn to this image. Yeah. Tell me what you see. Sometimes, and I'll have to say this body of work has been, I know I keep using the word magical, but it's like people get it.
Yeah.
Closer to what, I mean, I don't want you to be thinking exactly like me. That's no fun. But just to hear that you're picking up like on some of my symbolism and things like that, that's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, like hearing other people's like observations and the things that they notice or pick up on, it kind of, I mean, as an artist, it kind of helps you to kind of understand your own vision as well, and kind of like it builds upon what you may have originally wanted it to represent, but then you find out other people are seeing something else in it, and then you're like, oh, and then you start making more connections. And
I think talking about your work and writing about your work is really powerful too, because I tend to talk out loud just to get my thoughts together to drive other people insane. But it works for me. Yeah. And I finally go, okay, so this is what I'm thinking. But I do think a lot of artists do this just because we're so visual, and sometimes it's really words and talking to people can be, especially if you've been alone by yourself in your studio for a long time, and it's just you and the dogs, and they don't care. It's insightful to hear what other people have to say.
Absolutely.
Even I know a lot of my friends are like, well, I only trust my friends that are artists. I'm like, I don't know if that's really wise, because are we selling our art to just artists? I mean, I don't sell my work, so I don't know what that's like, but as much as I like to say I'm making it just for myself, I am also making it for an audience. And to deny that would be just, ludicrous. But so I want to hear what people have to say. Yeah. And then I think some people are just savants and can look at something and go, that composition sucks. What are you doing? And you're like, I didn't even think about composition. I've been so busy over here doing this thing with it.
Yeah.
It's so clear now that you said composition.
Just like you had mentioned earlier, that it's part of this process with artists, and like even the show, like putting the show up, seeing all of it together, hearing the comments and getting people's reactions. All of these things are part of the process.
They are part of the process. They're the final, oh my God, I'm finally done process. But I'm getting to see this time how this is playing into where I'm going next with my work.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, because I don't know. And I want to keep it open and just go, let's just see where it goes. I am just happy wherever it goes. I was like, I'm really drawn to these feminine images and incorporation of nature, but I don't know where it's going to go after this. Is it going to be the same, or is it going to evolve into something else? That's kind of exciting, to be honest.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's that exciting moment where you're like, oh, what next?
Yeah, because I had a friend text me saying, are you doing this body of work anymore? And I'm like, well, I'm thinking about, I said, not necessarily. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And then she said something to me, and then it was like I had that moment where you go, oh my God, I got to go write this down and sketch it out now.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I love that. Are you a full-time artist right now?
Well, I guess since I'm unemployed, I would go, I'm a full-time artist. I do own it. I am an artist, and people would just kind of look at you like, really, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, nothing, but that's okay too. I was a teacher, and I loved teaching. I love teaching children. They are amazing. Yeah. Because they don't have inhibitions. They don't go, well, do you think this blue is the right blue? None of that. They're just having a good time.
Oh, yeah.
And they're open. They'll try almost anything until they get to be in 8th grade. And then that's a whole nother world.
Yeah.
I just sometimes wonder about how the buy into capitalism and making money, and that your art has to make money, hurts our creativity.
Oh, absolutely.
And the reason I say that is I had a studio and I could sell work to keep my studio, but it felt very much like a production line. So I'm all for, and this may not be a popular thought, do whatever you have to do to support your art. If it's learning to cut hair, doing data entry, being a teacher, and you can still make your art and you can still give it the time it deserves, that's what you need to do. Because not all of us are going to be able to make money from our art. And I think making that your goal. And because you can only do those art fairs and craft fairs, and they take up a lot of energy and a lot of time. And
it's hard work, for sure.
It's hard work. I think most of the artists that are my age, they do it once a year. And it's mainly, this was a fun thing. I met so many people. There's more into it than selling your art.
Well, I mean, I feel kind of the same way. I am very fortunate, and I'm in a place where I make art, and I just make art for myself, really, but and there's that whole question of like, am I trying to make money with my art? Is it a hobby, or am I, is there like an end goal here where I'm like trying to make this my career instead of what I'm doing otherwise? And it's like, okay, like I think a lot of artists are trying to figure that out, but really you don't have to define it. You don't have to put it in a box and say, okay, this is, I mean, if you want to, like I do have friends who have quit their job, and now they do art fairs and festivals and shows and markets, and they are every weekend going. And that's
Right. I know those people too. If
yeah,
that's what you want, I just don't know how sustainable that is on
yeah,
the human, on a
very
human body
hard.
and your family and your art.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think it takes a toll in ways that you don't realize. I don't Here, I'm going to plug somebody else's book, but Rick Rubin's The Circle. Have you heard about that book?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I I mean, it's up there with pop psychology, but the man is a genius in his field. And the things that he talks about are not revolutionary, but they do make you think. And he talks about that. And he talks about we are all born creative. It manifests itself in different ways. But he was big on not labeling what you're doing if you're making art as a hobby. It is what you're doing to feed your soul.
Yeah.
And I have nothing against if that's what you want to do is art fairs and sell your work and work as that hard. My hat is off to you. I just admire people. I'm kind of, I think, a little envious too because they have that kind of energy, and I don't.
Yeah. The people I'm talking about are younger than me. So
Yeah, they're younger. They're usually younger than you because you're just like because you reach a certain place where you're like, well, camping was fun, but it's not
yeah.
anymore.
Maybe once
Because
in 5 years, 10 years, I don't know.
right, I think everybody and I've talked to people. They'll ask me about it. I'm like, you should try it. You should definitely try it. And then I try to keep my mouth shut after that because your experience is going to be different than mine,
Yeah.
and it may light your soul to spend every weekend from August till Christmas at an art fair, and then all those hot summers at art fairs.
I can see like how some people would get like a lot of energy from it and that
Right.
was really exciting and stuff. But for me personally, it would be very exhausting. Part of like figuring out your own process of being an artist is kind of determining, okay, I can't do art shows every single weekend. That's just too much for me.
Right.
Versus maybe I have some art in a shop or a gallery
Right.
and people
There's
can
just
find it there and buy it, and I can be at home making my art or
right. I think everything.
whatever.
I mean, it just takes. You just have to work at it and figure out what works for you.
Exactly.
Um, and I imagine if you're an extrovert, art fairs may be the most amazing thing
Yeah.
on this planet, and they light your soul. For us that are introverts, it's like, oh my god, this was so taxing. You know, so
Absolutely.
I don't. Everybody's different.
Yeah, sure.
I wish there was a magic, but I do think making art for yourself is the most powerful thing.
Mm.
I think at the end of the day or the end of the body of work, you are going to be the happiest.
Mm.
But everybody has to get to where whatever
Yeah.
makes them happy by trial and error. There's no other way. And what works for me won't work for you.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
So like also another thing that we had talked about earlier is being competitive and maybe even comparison and like just like how we're talking about different artists maybe sell their art or don't sell their art, they're doing it their own way. How do you feel about that? Do you have any issues with like comparing yourself or feeling competitive in any kind of way?
I, as a rule, I don't feel competitive. I mean, I have envy sometimes, which is a nasty little monster. Um, but I think as I get older, that's easier to deal with and go, well, I am happy for them. I'm glad they're getting to do this. I just need to keep making my work. All you'll do is think about, well, why did they get this opportunity? Why didn't I get this opportunity? And man, I am supposed to be this place in my career and I'm not, and I'm pretty unhappy. On some level, it is a catalyst to help you evolve your art, but but if you're not careful, envy and jealousy and competition will eat your soul, and then you won't be making art. All you'll be doing is striving for something that once you get it may be fruitless. And also I don't think it's wise to be competitive.
Yeah.
I just don't see what ends it meets, except to make you unhappy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too, like I feel the same way about it is that we're all on our own paths and we're all doing our own thing.
Yeah,
But like if you're going to compare yourself or feel envious of someone else, are you genuinely on your own path, or are you trying to like follow somebody else's path?
exactly. And then I think, are you making art to make yourself happy, or are you making art for people's approval?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And getting approval is very addictive.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I think I did this.
Yeah,
Oh,
getting that, high five or that like
I,
on.
those likes, those all my gold stars. Look at
Yeah.
me. Um, it'll get in your way, and I think it makes things unclear to you.
Mm,
And that's I just believe it leads to personal unhappiness. Why do that to yourself? Just go
yeah.
make your art and just do your art. What is it that Jerry Salt says? Get in your studio and make art. Just make it. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh, okay. Stop doing all this stuff. But it's
Yeah.
just that's just a part of being human, I think.
As you get older, I feel like myself personally, I kind of grew out of that. And now it's one of those things where I'm just like, I don't even think about it anymore, whether or not.
Exactly. I do think it probably is an age thing. Also a confidence thing too, because I've talked to mainly women artists. I don't know what men think about this very much, but I would love to know what they think. That we have such self-confidence issues,
Mm,
and we're always trying to justify why am I making art? Well, oh, it's just a little hobby. We don't give it the size it needs. This is a big thing. It's important to me.
let's say, okay, I'm 50 years old. I should be here
Right,
versus
right,
here, compared to this other person or.
right. I think there's that I should have done more with my life,
Oh,
and I should be in museums in New York. And I mean that it
it doesn't really work that way.
it doesn't work that way at all. But and I think you just have what the comparisons and things like that so bad for you. And envy is bad for you because a lot of it is luck. I wish I could say, I mean, I do believe in hard work, and I mean working and doing your art as much as you can. You need to be because a lot of luck is just being in the right place at the right time.
Absolutely.
But if you're not doing the work and you're hoping some art fairy godmother is going to show up and give you a gallery representation or a show at this nice museum, that's not going to happen with you being envious and sitting around going, no
Yeah.
one sees how good I am compared. I don't see, she's just got an MFA. I don't know what her deal is, you know.
That's awesome.
And I mean, there's a part of your life where you do think like that, and then you have to go get over this.
Yeah.
You're not going to get anywhere with this kind of thinking.
Yeah, no. If anything, it would stagnate myself. It would just make me feel so stagnated and bogged down with these, I don't know, like negativity so much
Well,
so that I probably couldn't make anything, like I would
right.
just be like,
To me, envy and comparison just feels icky.
yeah.
I mean, it's a part of being human, but it's icky, and you
Yeah,
don't
it
want.
is.
And you're like, and I think as you get older, you're like, you show it to the door quicker.
Yeah.
You go, I
Absolutely.
don't have time. You're taking up way too much real estate. Move on.
Yeah. Like I
You're
don't even want an MFA. Why am I even, I don't care.
right. Why am I striving through this?
Good for them. Awesome.
Good for them. I am just
Awesome.
glad they got all that money. I am great. Go for it.
Yeah.
And I'm not. And if an MFA is what you need, you go get
Yeah.
it. And I've
I,
seen some my friends that have gotten them. I will say it is impressive what that 2 years will do for people. But
yeah,
also, doing your work will also do it too.
that's
And
true.
there are alternatives to that. Um, ways around it, creative ways to figure out how to grow. Because I think that's really what an MFA does for you.
one of the things that I imagine really makes that experience particularly, um, good for people is that it's creating community.
Right,
And
exactly.
you're doing these things together, you're working through things together, and you have your colleagues and your peers. That's something that you can be a part of community outside of getting a degree or going to college. And then, like, both of us, we're part of the Alabama, Women's Caucus of Art, which, just a little plug here, is really wonderful. You should
It
join.
is amazing. I cannot say enough about it.
I mean, you get opportunities, you get to network with other artists. We're having a show and tell where you get to bring your art and get other artists to talk to you about it and work through, if you're struggling with something, or if need some advice or something like that.
it
You never
there's
know.
nothing like
Yeah, you never know what that connection with another artist will lead to.
exactly.
It's like you're talking with Ansley Smithy to possibly do a show together, or
Right.
having art dates where you get together and you just, explore your own creativity. And maybe while you're there, you're like, hey, this show is coming up, you should apply, or,
Oh, right. Well, I heard that someone's such and such gallery has nobody booked in the month of January next year. Call them. You just never know. That's one thing I will say about ALWCA. I have met so many impressive artists through this, and people that have given me ideas, they've given me opportunities, they've suggested I do this instead of that. Um, Things that sitting by myself in my studio I would have never thought of because just wouldn't occur to me. And they're encouraging and they're upbuilding, and you need that. One as women artists, because I don't even think till 20 years ago there was another artist besides Frida Kahlo
Yeah.
in art history. I haven't gone to school at two drastically different times. There were no women artists, and then there was Frida Kahlo, and maybe Alice now if you've got an open-minded professor. And so I think, not to say I'm crazy like a sisterhood, but we do need that. And that is one of the big motivations between ALWCA is to encourage women artists, to put us out in the forefront, to say, yes, we're here, we are taking up space, and we have every right to take up the space. Instead of going, oh, I made this, isn't it cute? No. Just to be bold, to be more confident, because you are good.
Yeah.
You are enough.
And I think
it's just being able to stand up and own that is really, for a lot of us, is hard.
Yeah.
Maybe for 20 it's not, but everybody else is.
Yeah. It's like, I think one of the things that's really been interesting to me is to meet all of the other women artists and connect online, see what people are doing, and it's like it occurs to you like, whoa, okay, that person, they're doing all of these things. Maybe I could try to do some of those things. And you kind of build each other up by, I don't know, letting your art be larger and sharing it with each other.
Exactly. I know a lot of women struggle making art and having children, and the guilt, whether it's self-imposed or by your family or what other larger community you're part of. There are women in our organization who have done it, successful, are in museums now. They do impressive bodies of work, have children. That's possible. We see what's possible, I think, because while I'm a lover and hater of social media, you get a very limited view of what is really going on. And there's a lot of, this is my best life now. And you're like, no, I want to see the messy, oh my God, I thought I was going to shoot the dog today kind of stuff. And that rarely gets on social media. But I think it's important to know, I think with this body of women that we get to know and connect with, we get to hear about their success. We get to hear about their failure. We also get to watch them go, pick themselves up and keep going. Because I will say making art isn't for the faint of heart. Because it does require work. It requires putting yourself out there and having people say weird, crazy stuff to you. And you go, that's just interesting. Tell me more. Instead of going, starting to cry or wanting to choke them, because they will say it. And you just have to kind of go, nice.
That's interesting.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I have really enjoyed being part of the caucus of the women's.
Well, I know we've enjoyed having you. You are such an asset. Thank you so much.
So, I mean, I think eye-opening too, to, and I've interviewed a lot of members, and it's just, you don't realize what's out there and what the possibilities are, because people don't really talk about it. It's like this stream underneath, what people do.
What's my secret? If I tell you, then you'll know.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's silly, because if I see a call to art and think you're good at, this would be a great thing for you, I want to tell you about it. I think we make ourselves stronger. We make each other stronger by sharing information and telling each other about this, about what's going on. I tried this and this worked. I tried this and it didn't work. We need to be. I think that's where competition really hurts us as a human, when we go, because we're coming from a source of scarcity instead of opening up. And I think, this is my personal thing, the more you open up, the more comes to you.
Absolutely.
When you close yourself off and say, I'm only gonna, I think all the avenues of possibility end.
Yeah. Being a part of something and like being open to sharing and connecting with others and learning about what other people are doing. I mean, it can only supplement and build upon what you're doing. It's
right. Because I think earlier we kind of talked about, I don't believe there are any original ideas. That's my personal belief, that we're all standing on the shoulders of giants.
Absolutely.
And grace and generosity will carry you further, and accepting the fact that I'm doing this and going forward and being open.
Yeah. I mean, community is an amazing thing.
Community is huge, because it's not good. I mean, you need some alone time, and most artists are introverts, I feel like. But there's some that are extroverts. There's some people in between. I don't think it's an either or sort of situation most of the time. I think it's where your energy goes. Because their day, if you get me on a good day, I'm probably an extrovert. You get me on a bad day, I don't want to answer the phone. But having community strengthens you so much. One, it does a lot of good things for your dopamines and your mood. And if you are flummoxed and in a corner, you can call somebody and say, hey, can I have coffee with you? Most of the time they want to have coffee with you, and you'll sit and talk and figure it out.
Yeah.
Or you'll find out about an opportunity, or what's burning everybody's minds now? Art residencies. How do I get into that? What exactly is a call to art? Because this information is like squirreled away and just given out in little tidbits. And it doesn't have to be that way. And I don't believe it should be that way. I think we should be open and willing to give it to whoever wants it.
Absolutely.
And see where it goes.
Yeah.
And working by yourself 24 hours a day is not wise, not good for your soul, not good for your family, not good for much of anything. But
so you've got a lot going on right now. Like, you've got some shows that are up right now, and then you've got some coming. What's going on?
Right now, at Lowe Mill on the main first floor gallery, I have Signs and Wonders. That's complete, all of its cyanotypes on fabric with sewn elements in. And I have to say, I am really proud of myself. I set up a goal and I succeeded. And some days I worked, some days I didn't. I also learned to be kind to myself because I think before I would beat myself up and go, "You didn't work today. You're a waste of time."
Yeah.
But I learned to talk nicer to myself and go, "Well, today was not a winning day. Tomorrow will be better." So that was great. So I've got that, and I learned a lot from doing that whole thing because just the process of making cyanotypes, and I'm addicted to the whole idea that you can put all this work and time into something and then it just totally goes, and you take it out of the water and it's either navy blue or this pale color, and you're just like, you just don't know what you're going to get. So apparently I really like that predictability. I'm just like, oh, I failed at everything today. I have one story when so I have this setup when you make the cyanotypes that you put your fabric. There's two ways to do cyanotypes. You can do wet and you can do dry. I do dry cyanotypes because it's hot here and I don't want condensation to build up on the glass because you have to layer something heavy on top of the fabric and whatever image you're using. I use negatives and also use live plants materials, sticks and stuff too. But I have to put a piece of glass on it to hold it down. And so it has to be dry or you'll get basically condensation and bubbles. And it just messes your image up. I might try that and see what it looks like. I might be more willing to play this time around and just see what happens. But I was having this really unsuccessful day. And I could not figure out why they were all washed, because it just washes out. You put it in cold water and your image will appear. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And I started having like these dark edges. I'm like, why is their edges dark? And then I walk out there and my dog is like sunning himself on my setup and my frame for my cyanotypes. And I'm like, oh.
Oh, that's so funny.
had I walked out here like 5 minutes ago, saved me a lot of grief here. Yeah. But I learned a lot. I learned you should probably put it where you can't get it. Maybe now that I'm talking about this out loud, it does teach you you'll persevere. You will you learn patience, accepting failure. Because I know that's a scary thing because we all want this idea to work out great. And when it fails, we're all disappointed. But once you just really embrace failure, you're just like, okay.
Yeah.
Or let's try this again. Or what? This was a beautiful mistake. So I've learned a lot in that. I've also really given a lot of thought just to the themes of my work about us being enough and us being beautiful the way we are and perfect. And it's the world that tells us we're not. And that's a lie. So that's kind of where my work's going. And I'm curious to see where the artist, Ainsley and I, where we're going with it. Because I think we're going to kind of meld our thought. We're thinking very similar. Yeah. So it'll be curious to see how this goes, because she created something and then I'm like, hey, can I steal that image? And she said, I don't care. And so I did and tried it out on Cyanotype. And I like it. I haven't gone much further. She's doing like rubber stamps and carving out images and printing them. And then I'm stilling them and manipulating them in Photoshop and playing around with them and trying them in Cyanotype. I have nothing to really show for that right now, but I'm curious to see where it's going to go. I have something, but you'd be like, what is that? I don't know. Maybe in about a month I'll know, but I don't know.
Oh, that's so fun. I love that you're collaborating too. And
I can't say enough. I would like to collaborate more. Anyone out there? But it is great because she will say, sometimes, you spend way too much time walking down a blind alley, and it's good to have someone go, well, that's not working. And it's also good to go, I think, just being in the same room with each other and seeing her do something or say something, it'll trigger something. And I'll be like, I need to go look at that. I need to investigate this more.
Yeah.
Also being curious. I cannot tell you, if you're not curious and an artist, your life is going to be very stressful. Because it leads you places that you just go, oh, well, let's just see what happens. Just asking why, I think, is the biggest thing you can be as an artist.
Yeah. I completely agree. Curiosity is so important.
It is. It's just, I can't imagine, well, and now I need to go get a book to discover what this is about, or I need to go research this a bit more. I do like research, so I may be really biased there. I have to be careful and cut myself off, or I'll spend, I'm going to go to this library. I'm going to read this entire book. And then I'm like, I think it's just another form of procrastination. But it is important. I do think it is important. It's just knowing when to cut it off and work.
That's a good point, actually. That's something that I need to do myself, because I get into the research part of it.
Rabbit hole, man. 2 hours later, I'm like, what?
Why am I reading this article about this random thing that just occurred to me? And okay, what am I doing?
I think that's really good, because you don't know where that idea is going to lead you, and it might not be productive and lead to a body of work today. But I have to say, like, this body of work that's at Lowe Mill right now came from something from a long time ago. When I go back and look at my sketchbooks or go back and read anything I wrote about, I can see it was very, embryonic.
Yeah.
But it came back up. So I honestly don't believe there's anything such as useless information, because you just never know. But you need to be able to say, hey, let's see how that idea goes. Let's take it on.
Absolutely. I do the exact same thing. It's like I'm constantly collecting ideas, but the ideas might not land right now, but it will.
It's just not their time,
come back around when they're supposed to, and you start going in that direction.
There's I don't know if you've ever heard the interview that Tom White gave Elizabeth. I forgot she wrote about this. I can't remember her name, but he's sitting in traffic. Yes. Yeah. Gilbert. Tom Waits is sitting in traffic. An entire song comes to him, and he starts beating the top of his car going, listen, I don't have a pen. You're going to have to come back when I go home. Yeah. And I walk in the door. He goes home, walks through that door, picks up a pen, and writes the entire song.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm like, that story has stuck with me all my life, because I'm like, that is kind of, I don't write music, but that is kind of how it happens. It is just the most, and that's kind of addictive, but it's just so strange.
Where can we find your art and see your art?
At this moment, I have a show at Lowe Mill in Huntsville. I have my hashtag is Khart Studio on Instagram. I also have a page on Facebook that I don't play with so much, so I wouldn't go there. And I also have my website, which is KimberlyReneeHart.com. And you can also see my older bodies too, because I kind of use it as an archive.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you. I know I was all over the world today, and but I enjoy. That's just how I talk.
That's what I like about this podcast thing is, and that's why I give such sort of simple questions. It's because I want it to go all over and touch on things as it comes up, just like, it just always leads to really great conversations about all kinds of things.
I have so enjoyed talking to you today. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, it's really fun. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Art Talk with April. For more information on this episode, join the Facebook group, The Art Lounge. Please subscribe and share. See you next Tuesday. Hope you have a great week.